Here we have something going around stating that should we buy or stop buying AMC shares? And you have some people who rant, put on a rant, say, oh no, you shouldn't do that. You should stop buying AMC shares. Buy, buy, buy. Buy and hold, buy and hold, buy and hold. Um, and then a lot of these people, if someone have a different of opinion, they decide that they want to assassinate the person verbally, calling them shield, call them hedgies, call them anything they want. I call those people the berserker apes, people that would you would put those out in the front line because they're going to go one way just like Juggernaut forward. However, you have to have those who don't mind thinking, those don't mind discussing opposing viewpoints without trying to assassinate other people's character. Um, it's good to have healthy conversation, healthy debate as to whether or not um, this would be a good thing to do or not. When you have an idea, you put it up for a test and you let people um, throw questions at it to see if it can stand the test. There's nothing wrong with that. I've reached out to some of the YouTubers, the ones who have now grown their channels up to astronomical levels, see if we can have a healthy conversation. And what has happened, I guarantee you that a lot of them won't respond because they're so used to telling people buy and hold, and they're built their channel up to that. They don't want to really change their mindset, even though a changing of the mindset may be warranted. If a train is going down a mountain, it's going full speed, and there's a curve up ahead, and you're pumping coal inside that train, you may have to slow that train down in order to make that curve. You know, some people may say, put more coal in there, let it keep going, let it go faster. No, you may have to apply the brakes. You can't win a NASCAR race always on this foot on the accelerator all the way to the floor. You're going to have to let up a bit. You know, the same in a war. A good general has to be able to understand when you may have to change strategies due to the circumstances. You can't just being gung-ho and go the same direction all the time. Now, people say, why should we take our own buy button away? And they laugh. It's not a laughing matter when you want to understand something. Well, during January 28th, Robinhood took the buy button away. So I want to get a little history on this because a lot of you already know this. Robinhood took the buy button away. And when they took the buy button away, the stock fell down because they took the buying pressure away. The thing to focus on is they needed to get rid of the buying pressure. Not so much how they did it, but they got rid of the buying pressure. That's what you focus on. And Citadel stated that it didn't tell Robinhood to take the buy button away. Okay, we have to accept that. However, what you do know is that Citadel agreed with what Robinhood did. They did, and how do you know? Because Citadel show in action that they agreed by taking the buy pressure away in a different way, and that is routing the orders to off exchanges. Some say dark pools. So while there was a lot of heavy buying, the stock price wasn't going up, and they were keeping it down by routing it in a different way. So what that goes to show is that Citadel was one with Robinhood when it comes to taking the buying pressure away. They agreed with that. Just the manner in how they did it is different. Robinhood accomplished this goal by stopping people from buying. Citadel has accomplished and is still accomplishing its goal by stopping people, the shares, from going to the lit exchange. In fact, Gary Gensler made that statement openly. And we got to understand, when somebody says something openly, as they used to say or still say, you got the right to remain silent. Anything you can say can be used against you in a court of law. Gary Gensler said that a lot of the orders are going around the lit exchange to the off exchanges, causing a potential conflict of interest. There's no potential. It is a conflict of interest, but that's what was happening. However, something happened. AMC retail investors continued to buy shares of AMC until a confirmation came by Mr. Adam Aron that retail had bought 80% of the float. Now, that was said back then, and it also was said recently by Mr. Adam Aron. Retail had bought 80% of the float, or owns 80% of the float. Now, retail believes they own more than that. But the confirmation by Mr. Adam Aron is you owed 80%. Now, he must know something. Because if he say that, remember when he said that he was not going to sell any more AMC shares into the market this year, when he said it openly, he had to abide by what he said, because he said it openly. So therefore, if he said that the shares, 80% of the float is owned by retail investors, we have to assume that he's telling the truth there also. So that means if retail owns 80% of the float, that would mean there will only be 20% left. Okay, let's assume only 80%, only 20% left. Now, people have been buying. If there is only 20% of the float left, then that means the institutions can only get 20%. However, it seems like there's a never-ending supply of shares because retail has been buying, and sometimes the buying pressure has been, 2-3 times higher than the selling pressure. But yet, it seems like never run out of shares, correct? So you have to take what Mr. Adam Aron has given us and say that, okay, 80% of the float is owned by retail investors, and if you have one variable, then you can know how to handle the other variables. Now, back in January 28th, you couldn't take the buy button away from yourself because retail it hadn't been confirmed that retail owned the float. But now that retail owns the shares, if you decided to stop buying, what could the institutional investors or could the hedge funds do? Some say, oh, the stock will start to drop down because you need heavy buying pressure. Okay, you've been putting heavy buying pressure in there. Stock has still been dropping down. Oh, go ahead and buy some more. Okay. If you like the stock at $40 a share, if it drops down to $20 a share, would you like it more? You'll get 2 for the price of 1. Wouldn't you like that? If the the price drops down to $10 a share, oh, wouldn't you like it even more? If the only thing you want to do is just keep buying and buying and buying. Wouldn't it make sense? We've had some of the YouTubers to make a statement and say they need our shares to cover. Really? Well then, if they need your shares to cover, and you really believe they need your shares to cover, then if you stop buying, then nothing should happen. Should it? Because they need your shares. That's what you say, and that's what you preach. They need your shares to cover. So, let's assume that the price did drop down to zero of the stock. What do you think would happen if all of the retail investors decided just to stop buying? That would be a large feat, of course. But if you say, okay, just hold what you got and don't buy anymore, what do you think would happen? Do you think the company would go bankrupt based on the share price went to zero? That would be amazing, because you know why? If retail, who is the juggernaut in this, that holds 80% of the shares, if retail did not sell the shares, then how in the world can brokers and hedge funds justify a zero stock price? How would they be able to justify that? Now, I'm putting this out here because when you talk or try to talk to some of these head YouTubers, they don't want to listen to this. They don't want to discuss this because it doesn't fit the narrative that they have been floating on, which is buy, hold, buy, and hold. If the stock price went to zero, it showed that. But yet retail still shows they're the owners and they never sold. How can that zero price be justified? How could 20% holders of 20% take a stock down to zero and it be justified? Now, saying they can't do it, I said justified. I think a bunch of cockroaches would come out of the woodwork if that happened. Okay? But one thing we do know, if people keeps buying and buying and buying, that you are constantly giving those who keep selling or coming up with these shares your money. If they are giving you fake shares, you are giving them real money that you have to work hard for. If they are giving you fake shares, why don't you give them fake money? But you can't do that, can you? You can't do it. Now, if it was switched and institutional investors owned 80% of a stock, and the retail investors was only able to get 20% of that stock, if all the retail investors sold all of their shares out, do you think the stock price would go to zero if institutional investors held? I don't know. I'm putting this out for question, because when you write it or you send it to some of these YouTubers, they don't seem to see it, and some of them don't want to even respond, even though they do. What do you see? Will the stock go to zero if the institutional investors owned 80% of a stock and didn't sell? Will it hold its value? Now, I can understand a stock going to zero if those who are selling it are selling real shares to somebody. But if the retail investors are holding the real shares 80%, then is it possible that fake shares can make the stock price go to zero? That would be something interesting to see. This is why there is a case now of perhaps maybe you should stop buying the fake stuff. Now, let's give an example. Mr. West Christian had a case, the lawyer, with Overstock, where the owner of that company had bought every single share in Overstock. Every single one. Now, it's easier for one person or maybe people who know each other to buy up a float, because they know inside their broker it tells you if there's only 500,000 shares, it tells you that you got 500,000 shares. It's quite harder to do that with millions of people stretched all over to verify what they have. So therefore, that's why you have to go with what Mr. Adam Aaron said. But in Overstock, he bought every single share up, and he didn't sell anything. But the next day, shares were trading on the market. Even though he bought them up and just held them. Well, that opened them up to be investigated, because no shares should have been trading on the market when he wasn't trading any shares on the market. You see? So there might be a case to the stop buying. There might be. However, it's an idea that needs to be placed out there for the YouTubers, the head YouTubers, to toss around and think about, and not be afraid to talk about something that goes against what they're used to doing. See, you could not have stop the buy button, your own buy button, in January 28th, because you had not owned the shares at the moment, all of them, or 80%, the majority. But now you're in a different position. If you want to put a stop to this game, that might be the way to put a stop to it. Who knows? If they can't sell them to you anymore, they got to sell them among themselves. You sit back and watch and see what is going on. That would be interesting. It really would be interesting. Because as some of the YouTube investors have said, or YouTube heads have said, they need retail's shares to cover. Now, either you believe that or you don't. If you don't believe it, don't say it. But if you do believe it, you say it. And then you can walk away and hold. Last thing, the technical analysis that's being done, and this need to be said openly also, when you have a stock that's being manipulated, like AMC or GME, if it's being manipulated, technical analysis don't work. You can look at whatever pendant, you can look whatever you want to do. It means nothing if you're using it. Now listen, it means nothing if you're using it to try to predict what AMC is going to do. The only thing you can use technical analysis now for is to see what it's doing, but not to predict what it's going to do, because you have someone who's doing something else with the stock. So there's no need to try to use that to try to get people to think that this is going to happen. Because right now, you don't know what is going to happen. Only thing you know is what is going on, and that it needs to be stopped.